It's Prediction Friday. Noles and Tigers. Who you got?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into another episode of Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, and thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Network, your team every single day. Before we get into everything, please note that Game Time is our sponsor today. Game Time is the app to check out. You can download the app, create an account, and use promo code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Today's show, we're just going to break down why I think Florida State can win and also why I think LSU can win. And then in the third segment, guess what? We're going to actually do a prediction. Here's why I think the game goes down and fill in the blank. You can have all your opinions, comment away as you see fit on YouTube, etc. Happy to hear about it. Go ahead and do so. One last thing before I get into this. I know last year, let's be honest, that was a weird game. I'm just hoping that special teams aren't the reason that Team A or Team B wins. I just want it to be normal football. That was a very unusual game. I think we can all agree on that. So with that being said, if Florida State wins, how do they do it? Number one, I think they're going to create turnovers if they do. They have more athleticism, more depth, etc., than they've had since probably about 2016. They have Jared Verse, which is a very special player at edge. He's going to be probably a first-round pick. They have excellent experience across their defense. If LSU makes errors in any way, loose ball in terms of security on an outside run, a screen, and the guy gets held up, the cavalry comes, somebody pokes the ball out, whatever it may be. It could be just a defensive lineman that got stoned, jumps up and tips the ball in the air. One of FSU's fast linebackers like Tatum Bethune, etc., finds a way to get to the football, and it becomes a turnover. I think they need 2 turnovers to win, kind of conservatively. And I would say the same for LSU. Guys like Perkins, obviously, Guillory, etc., they have plenty of talent in their front seven. Do not shed a tear for them. I know they lost Mason Smith, but they have a lot of talent. Now, number 2 thing I got on my list. And I think they'll do this for the most part because like Akeem Dent, he's a guy who's just rock solid. I didn't even really talk about him this week because I expect him to be somebody that doesn't get discussed during the game because he's a safety that doesn't make a lot of errors. He could play in a lot of spots. He could have been a receiver, whatever. He's a really good athlete, but he's an experienced player. Those kinds of guys will limit busts. And I don't care who you're playing, if a guy's running scot-free down the field, even a mediocre quarterback is going to make that play. Well, I can assure you, Jayden Daniels, yeah, he's going to make that play too. LSU will not allow you to get away with busts. Florida State's defense, fortunately for them, more depth, more speed, more experience than just about any team in the country. That's going to help them. 3, I think part of the reason for this is Jayden is so confident in himself, and I get it, that LSU will probably end up being credited with giving up 3 sacks to Florida State if the Noles win, and it's going to be 1 or 2 of them, I would bet, will be shoestring tackles. You're not going to just get a whole bunch of guys running scot-free through an offensive line that returns all 5 guys. LSU's front is good. Will Campbell, watch the left tackle for LSU, tremendous player, future Sundays guy. They have plenty of talent. But he's going to hold on to the football some. And when he does, Florida State can collapse the pocket and maybe get a few easy ones. We'll see. He can throw it away too. Very heady guy. But watch for the Noles with pressures. I also think they'll have a few more or a few less penalties than LSU. Overall, this is probably the most experienced roster in major college football. The transfers, etc. If you look at the roster, like 18 of the 22 guys on the depth chart that are starting, etc., are like junior, seniors, 5th-year senior. Like they're very, very experienced. That's going to pay dividends. I know it's first game. I get it. First games are notorious, even at the National Football League level, for dumb penalties, motion, illegal procedure, not enough men on the line of scrimmage. I really hate that one. And so do coaches. I'll speak for them. But whatever it is, I think Florida State will be a little bit better than LSU. And LSU's pretty experienced too. But those kinds of things in a game that's like Vegas has this a 3-point LSU favor, 2.5. In a game like that, one penalty could be the difference because a 3rd and 2 becomes a 3rd and 7. Keep that in mind. 150 yards on the ground. That is kind of the generic number I expect Florida State to get to. I mean, it could be 138, it could be 153, whatever, but give or take 150 yards. And I also think part of that will be with the short yard. I think they'll do good in short yardage. Last year, neither team took advantage of those opportunities. And again, really hoping it doesn't come down to field goals and punts and stuff like that, like it did last year. But this game, I think Florida State will do well in a lot of scenarios that are short yardage and in the red zone. And that's how they're going to win. Because if Florida State does not, how can they win? You're not beating LSU kicking 5 field goals. You know what I mean? You're not going to win that kind of game. Jayden Daniels and those guys are going to score some points. A little hint, I think both teams will be in the 30s. I'll get to that in segment 3. But you better find a way to run the ball effectively to set up the big passing plays. And you better also convert 3rd downs, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, and maybe even a 4th down or 2 in that scenario. Because if you don't, you hand the ball to Jayden Daniels, bad things can happen. Finally, I also think they're going to hit 2 or 3 big passing plays down the field. And what I mean by that, they might have an additional to this. So let me clarify. I believe that Florida State will hit passing plays where the ball literally travels from the line of scrimmage to the point the ball hits the hands of the intended target 20 or more yards. I think they'll have at least 2, possibly 3 if they win. If they do not, and LSU is able, and they got great safeties. If LSU keeps everything in front and there's no bus, that's the other thing. I have a feeling there's going to be some issues there. We'll talk about that in the next segment. But if they can limit the bus from the corners, Chestnut, he's talented, but he's a new guy in their system. It only takes 1 or 2 plays, just like with Jayden Daniels. If you screw around with Jordan Travis, he will go up top and kill you. You cannot give free points to the Noles. I still think they're going to do pretty good, though, because they have more size at receiver, and I think they're going to win 50-50 balls. That's a big, big deal in this game. Now, all of this together, we could have went 20 on each side. There are reasons for both. And I could have went through every single player in the starting lineup, but I'm just doing 6 each, just so you know. As we go into segment 2, please note, here at Locked On, we're expanding. We're doing things a little bit different. Every Friday, the following is going to take place. College football season is here. Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On College Football Live each Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On YouTube channel. So, for instance, if you go to the Michigan page, you go to the LSU page, you go to the Georgia page, whatever it is, you go to that and you could make it happen. Here's the deal. You can watch and find out about depth charts, injuries, inside perspective, whatever it may be. The other thing that's very unique with this, you're going to find out from guys that are just and gals that are just very, very honest. I've gotten to know a bunch of them. Being the recruiting expert on Locked On, it's going to be a lot of fun. Find Locked On College Kickoff live every Friday from 11 to 1, and you can get it on any of their YouTube pages. You don't want to miss it. Now, segment 2, let's talk about what LSU can do and how they could make it happen. There's a couple of different things different that I think Florida State, they're similar teams in a lot of ways, but at the same time, LSU does have its unique qualities in one player in particular. Number 1, that's Malik Nabers. He's one of the best players in college football, and I don't think he's given enough credit. And it's because LSU was such a dominant running team last year. So we're going to get into that here in a second. But for him to do it, part of the reason that I think it'll happen, even though Florida State will do everything in their power, Jayden Daniels is going to get to the perimeter. He's going to make some plays running. Then sometimes it looks like he's going to run, and then he's going to throw it. He is a very difficult player to corral. whether it's Nabers, whether it's Brian Thomas, and do not forget that name. Brian Thomas is a very good football player. You are going to see LSU hit big plays. I think they're going to score a lot of points in this game. I'm just defining how I think they can win. They have Josh Williams. They've got Logan Diggs. They got John Emery, Noah Kane. They're running backs. They're good to go there. A lot of experience. Guys that can catch the ball like Logan Diggs. Very good receiver. Screen game. So if you give them an extra play or two where Daniels gets on the perimeter, whether it's a bootleg, a waggle, a naked, whatever, and they find a way to let him launch one down and get a big play, that could be the difference in the game, and LSU comes out on top. Very capable. Florida State must be vigilant about staying home. Now, they say that every day in practice, and going up against a guy like Jayden Daniels should make it easy in your head to think that, but it's first game of the year. It's the game on Sunday night. And this is an opportunity to make your mark. It's going to be very difficult for Florida State players to be balanced with their responsibility and not to let their emotions get ahead of them. If they're on a nickel blitz, an edge rusher just going up the field instead of holding his gap, etc. You cannot allow any way for him to get outside. But like if an edge guy goes all the way around, you can come up in the pocket, then cut back across. You see that at all levels. Sometimes you got to just be consistent and let the cavalry come. If not, Jayden Daniels on the edge. Harold Perkins, let's just cut to the chase here. I'll make this one real easy. At some point, he's going to make a play that's a game-changing play. And that's not just for LSU to win. Even if they lose, he's probably going to make one or two, okay? Great player, future NFL guy. He's playing inside linebacker for the Tigers now. He's special. For LSU to win, they need that to be a play, though, that's not just a gimme. They need it to be like when Florida State's going into the red zone, steal a drive away. Maybe they got 8 plays for 70 yards and they're on the 5-yard line and he picks up a fumble. Maybe he even takes it to the house and scores. Who knows? LSU needs Perkins to have a game-changing play. Is it possible? Absolutely. Is it likely? I certainly wouldn't bet against him. He's that talented. He won Defensive Player of the Week honors a couple times in the SEC last year, including in the Alabama game. Josh Williams and Diggs and all those guys that I mentioned, I think they're going to be similar. Maybe not exact, but similar to Florida State in rushing yardage, and that's what they need. The first team to 150, not 100, but 150 in rushing, I think will win. I think it's going to be a higher scoring game, just if you haven't already figured out. If Diggs and those guys can go off, and I don't even know if anybody knows exactly what the order is going to be for LSU's depth chart at running back. They got some guys. If they can get 150 yards first, that would be their easiest way. Because when you set up RPO and play action for Jayden Daniels, very difficult to slow down the Tigers' offense. The other guy that, besides Malik Nabers, who everybody knows they're going to try to get the ball to, the play action off the run game, he's definitely a threat. He can go up and get it over 2 people, whatever, and even come down and then score, go run and score. Do not discount Mason Taylor. While his numbers may not be the same as Malik Nabers or Brian Thomas, the other big receiver, 6'3", 6'4" kid out of Denham Springs, it's really talented. Mason Taylor is 6'6", 250. He's their primary tight end, an athletic young man, very gifted. I think he's a guy that can make a lot of plays, and I also think he can do the little things on 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. He'll run routes correctly, etc. They need some of that. Running back out of the backfield like Diggs to just kind of move the chains as an extension of the running game. It's one of the things I got on my notes, and it's so true. Finally, and this is the biggest one and maybe the biggest reason one team or the other wins this game. I waited to this point because it's so vital, and I've talked about it some this week. For LSU to win, they have a ton of talent in their secondary, but their quarterback board is moved around. They've got different guys there. Like safeties, like Major Burns, he's a great player. They're good. I don't think they're going to struggle at safety at all. They got 2 really good, maybe even 3 really good safeties. But Sage Ryan has moved from nickel to corner. That's new for him. He played mostly safety in high school. And then on the other spot, it's a little bit iffy on which one it's going to be. Probably they got a kid that transferred in from Southeast Louisiana, really, really good player. I think FSU will avoid him a little bit. He's got length. And he's got experience, but we'll see how that goes. But Chestnut's a kid that Florida State went after a little bit last year. He was at Syracuse. I think at least one of those 2, excuse me, need to play above expectations. And what do I mean by that? From talking to people around LSU off the record, the biggest concern is corner. Off the record. You're not going to get this stuff anywhere, but their biggest need isn't about talent. It's just because they haven't all played together. It's chemistry. Can they go through this entire game without a bust? The safeties might still clean it up. I mean, LSU, again, is very good in the back end, but if there's a mix-up on a crossing route or something, and one of these little speedy receivers, Destin Hill or something, gets a crosser or runs a post, it can be 6. That can be the difference in the football game. Florida State knows that. So I'm thinking they're probably going to do some different things, running bunch formations, running switch release. Just to give you an example, it's one of the reasons that Tennessee's offense works so well. It gave LSU fits and Alabama fits last year. They run everything really wide so you can't bracket. They've got guys basically standing on the sidelines with the coaches at receiver, but you better send somebody out there because they can go get it. And then they'll also cross so you can't press as well. It's a pain to deal with. You'll see a little bit of that. You will see some different things that FSU does, in my opinion. I'm guessing here, but I can't imagine they're not going to. With newer corners, you want to make them think. It's not a newsflash. Younger guys at the position, not necessarily younger players at the school, but at the position, challenge those guys mentally. If LSU gets by without any busts, the chances of them winning this game go up exponentially. All right. That will wrap up segment 2. Before we go any further, let's talk about our sponsor today, Game Time. College football season is here, and I am so excited for this stuff. It's great. Download the Game Time app. It's easy. It's easy to navigate. If you're like me, you're goofed around and you've probably waited to buy tickets too late. They've got flash deals and last-minute ticket opportunities. So if you do that like I do, you can find a way to get it taken care of. You can even see images of the seats. There's a lowest price guarantee. Forget planning months in advance. You can get Game Time deals at the last minute, day of the game. Get exclusive flash deals on football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, whatever it may be. Snag tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Now, let's talk a little bit about segment 3, and of course, that's the prediction. What goes into the final score here? What do I think? I just went over how each of the teams can win. This segment is why I think one or the other will win. So I'm going to back it up and kind of go back to the beginning of summer when I started to look at the schedules for all the games across the country, not just Florida State or LSU, who's winning and all that. It's basic because you don't know about injuries or anything. You just kind of do an eyeball test, etc. When I first did it and saw everything, and I had heard that Mason Smith was going to play for LSU, he's good to go, basically, on track. I thought LSU was probably about a 3-point favorite, which is what they are on the Vegas side of things. I thought LSU would win. Just very generic overview of that digging deep. He's obviously not playing. What I did not know at the time, and that's why you do your due diligence and you talk to those around the program, is that the situation at corner for LSU, their D-line room, by the way, is really good. So Mason's loss won't be quite as big as it normally would be. But their corner room, I've had multiple people tell me that's the concern. In a game that I think will go back and forth, I like FSU because I think they're going to get at least one more big passing play over the Tigers. Sue me, that's just simple as it gets, and it's unfortunate if there's a bust that gives an easy touchdown to a team, but hey, you got to take advantage of it too. Florida State still needs to earn it on that play or plays as it may be, and you got to come out on top that way. So what do I mean by bust? Just to be clear, if you're in cover 3 and you don't cover your deep third, I saw this at a high school game the other night, kid that's highly recruited, messed up on a play, and he got beat deep by a guy that's not near as good as him. Why? Because the guy was just flat out 5 yards behind him. That's an easy way to define a bust. But there are other ones too. Communication. You may do your job after the snap, but you didn't communicate something that you saw to your teammate to help them. That's another kind of bust and not necessarily something you're going to see on the screen. Again, that's more of a behind the scenes kind of thing, and communication in a secondary with all these bunch formations, with RPOs like Florida State runs, will give LSU pretty much any team fits. I like Florida State in that scenario. I think it'll give them an advantage on third down efficiency, but at the same time, again, you got to prove it. Both these teams they're very much mirror images of one another in that regard. Finally, and this is the other big thing with it, let's just give credit to where credit's due. Norvell and his staff, in my opinion, are the best program in the country at evaluating talent from the portal that'll not only do well individually, but have fit in. They've bought in well with the program. I don't know exactly what they've done, but just from talking to people at a lot of other programs, some in the SEC, there has been some disgruntlement at certain places because the kid's getting too much NIL on somebody on the roster, whatever. For the most part, from what I've heard, Florida State has done a great job with that. I would say Southern Cal would be second, but it's also one of the reasons that you win. Getting impact players out of there has changed Florida State's roster because they have not, out of the high school ranks, just flat out recruited LSU. That would be false. They have not. The transfer portal, if you look at how many stars, it's like 15, give or take, for this game. That's incredible to get them to buy in, play together, and be efficient. I don't think any team in the country has that many, and they are that good. So that's my pick. I've got Florida State winning a very close game. Final score for me, I've got 41-38. I think it's going to be a barn burner. And although it's the first weekend of the year, I think it's going to be one of the best games from start to finish in college football during the entire 2023 season. So anyway, for all of you folks out there, I just want to make a quick note. Anything that, happened, I hope nobody was really hurt or anything with Idalia, the hurricane that obviously went through state of Florida. I've lived in Florida. They are incredible. The state of Louisiana knows all about them. It is terrible. If you can do something for somebody, please do. Find out what's going on, be safe about it, but understand that hurricanes, Mother Nature, she is undefeated all time. That I can guarantee. With that, everybody have a great day. Thank you very much. Take care.